It's time for our new monthly series, Straight from the Superintendent. We're with our Superintendent, Dr. Jeanette Cowherd, and let's get straight to it. Okay, Dr. Cowherd, what is the latest with our start times, school start times, and our sleep and start times research committee?
Well, you got that said pretty well, I think, as we headed out. You know, we finished our sleep and start time subcommittee work first, and you may remember that when we decided to delay the decision around going to multi-tier, a big part of that was around conversations in our community about sleep for their kids and how that would impact. And the other part of that is that while we value that sleep, we also wanted to know what was going to be the impact on our schools, whether it was elementary, middle school, high school, activities, after school, before school, but also our educational program that we offer. So they completed that work in May and June and presented at a special board meeting on June 17th to the Board of Education on those findings. And it was kind of an interesting piece because it's kind of a mixed bag of results. And I think a lot of us were looking for that really strong information that says this is really what you need to do as you go forward, and this is not what you need to do. And we just didn't get that. We got a little bit of both as we came out of that survey, not survey, but out of that work. And so it will be fascinating to see as we start our next steps of what that's going to look like.
Mm-hmm. And talk about that next step of now people can apply to be on this committee.
Yes, the Board of Education on the 25th of this past month decided to go ahead toward a multi-tier system and to put a committee together similar to what we did with redistricting, where we have representation from across the district, we include administrators, we have it open to the public, and we have some of those sections. And so on the end of July, actually on the July 25th meeting, we will take to the board a slate of members for that committee, plus the timeline, the criteria, how it will be measured, and the metrics that we'll use for that. And our goal is to have this completed by the end of October.
We're getting some questions about the bus driver shortage. For example, there was a recent news story about First Student releasing 300 bus drivers who work for the Kansas City Public School District. So would that help us?
You know what, everything helps us. Anytime we can snag extra drivers. Those were First Student drivers, and we use First Student. And so, of course, any of those workers that we can get that will work for us is what we're trying to do at this point in time. The problem is, though, it's still not enough, because while First Student was the former transportation provider for Kansas City, well, they have a new one. And so, of course, they were taking those drivers too. And so, and it's not just a Park Hill issue or a Kansas City issue, it's a bigger issue than that. So all the schools in the metro are fighting for those same drivers. And as we've worked and looked at the data around here, we're gonna need over 3,000 additional CDL drivers in the next 3 years for all sorts of jobs, and besides just being a bus driver. And so, yes, does it help some? We hope, but they would also have to drive here to become a driver for us. And so it depends on what those people want to do. But obviously we're going to try to reach out to anybody we can.
People are also wondering if we can just increase pay. Would that work?
Yes, actually we've already done that once. And we've increased the pay, and we did that back actually in 17-18. We've also offered opportunities for our drivers to actually work as a driver, but then maybe come help us in some other positions that we have. A big part of that, the driver behind that, and sorry to use the word driver behind that, but a big piece behind this is benefits. Because bus driving is a part-time job, they don't work enough hours to earn benefits. And so because of that, we were trying to offer them a situation where they could drive, work for us, and earn those benefits. We just didn't get a lot of takers on that offer as we went forward. And so the other challenge too is if we raise our rates, then the districts around us are going to raise their rates. And so we're just driving up the cost and not really solving the problem, because I go back to what I said earlier, we're going to need 3,000 additional CDL drivers in the next 3 years. And so it is supply and demand. And yes, you can pay more for it, but also as we continue to expand our schools, we're opening 2 new schools. And so we are going to have to be careful with what we do with our resources.
How will all of this affect our budget?
It does impact our budget. As we looked at this and as we were projecting out, and one of the reasons we had it set in April, and the conversations we had was we were going to do our redistricting, we were going to open our new schools and change our start times all at one time, so our parents just had to go through one set of changes one time. But frankly, we did not do a good job of communicating that. And so that's why we stopped. And so now it'll be kind of a 2-step process as we move ahead, because it is an impact for us as a district. Transportation is one of our largest expenditures we have per year, because we need to get our students to school and we need to get them home safely as we go forward. And so it does impact our budget of that. We do have money in our reserves that we'll be using for the next several years we can do. And so I think this is really more about looking long range and what is sustainable. And one of the things that our community has really driven home, at least I understand it very clearly, is make sure you're using our taxpayer dollars wisely and make sure you're providing a sustainable future. And that's the two things we're trying to do.
And it's not just how much we spend, revenue is also a factor in all of this.
It is. We do receive state revenues for transportation, but that's an interesting piece itself. As we've continued to grow in our enrollment, obviously we need more buses for transportation. But ever since 2011, 2012, when we all remember those economic times so well, the state funding for us has actually remained flat. And so the state revenue coming in to reimburse for the transportation is flat, but our costs continue to increase. So that also impacts our budget. And so looking at all those pieces, not just expenditures, but also what does the revenue side look like, really has made an impact on us.
Thank you for really touching on all of that. Okay, summer in Park Hill does not mean we slow down.
It doesn't.
In addition to summer school, what are some things that we're working on right now?
Well, first off, we have a lot of students in summer school, and we're thrilled about that. And so that's a lot of fun. And it is, it's kind of changed this year because of the winter that we had. And so our summer school is a little extended, so they actually go through July the 12th, which is a longer time than we've normally done, but that's how our year has been. Lots of construction projects, and not just the big four that we talk about so much with the middle school, the elementary support services, and then the Lead Innovation Studio. But again, it's about taking care of what you have. And so we have lots of efforts going into just maintenance around the district that you'll see. And that's the things that don't sound very exciting, but heating and air, plumbing, making sure our technology is working, pulling those things through, and then also continue to work on our parity projects we have within our middle schools to make sure those are ready to go. Lots of painting going on, lots of cleaning, lots of fixing some potholes in our parking lots and things like that, adding to the playground at English Landing, those type of things. So we're excited to do that because we're also proud of all of our assets that we have, and we want to take good care of them.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cowherd.
You're so welcome.
A reminder, our website is www.parkhill.k12.mo.us. And for more information on the school start times, visit parkhilllistens.com. With Paul Lewis behind the camera, I'm Samantha Fitzgerald, and we'll see you next time for another edition of Straight from the Superintendent.